Broadcasting live on the Ops Lens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio, and online worldwide at thepcradioshow.com. Welcome into this Monday show. If you were watching or paying attention over the weekend, you probably saw a promotion for today's show. On an earlier episode of Patriotically Correct Radio, we told you that any donation to the Black Lives Matter website was funneled through another organization called Act Blue. We've proven that. That's a fact. We've tracked down the recipients of that money, and we now know more about Act Blue. According to got-freedom.org, Act Blue is undeniably the cash cow of the progressive movement, boasting over $6 billion donated to progressive candidates. Richard, you could be donating to Act Blue without even knowing it. In the second half, we're going to talk to former Kansas Attorney General Phill Kline. He is the one who is, as part of this Amistad project and as part of this got-freedom.org, he is exposing these people. He's got quite the story, and he's going to break that news here on Patriotically Correct Radio. It's insane the amount of corruption that is going on inside of the Democratic Party, Richard, and these Act Blue people are responsible for a lot of this corruption.
Well, let's not lose that thought. You said that I might be donating and don't even know it. The last thing I want is any one red effing cent to go to that organization. So
40-something percent, over 40% of donors to Act Blue are unemployed people. How does that work?
Yikes.
Yeah.
Don't they need to buy groceries and shit like that?
Well, we're going to talk to Phill Kline about it. He's the former Attorney General of the state of Kansas. He was also a chief prosecutor and for a county there, and now has had his law license suspended, taken away from him. He took it to the appeals court. They upheld the decision to hold it. He took it to federal court. They upheld it. It sounds to me like a political attack, and we will get to the bottom of it. I promise you. That's coming up in the second half. It's earth-shaking stuff that we're going to be breaking here on Patriotically Correct Radio as soon as Mr. Kline is available. Somebody else who knows about being attacked and somebody else who knows about the corruption on the other side of the aisle is a Senate candidate here in the state of Minnesota for Senate District number 67. A GOP candidate, Mr. Alexander Buster Deputie, is on the phone with us. Welcome to Patriotically Correct Radio.
How you doing, Stu? Nice to meet you guys. Richard, you too, buddy.
Nice to have you here this afternoon. Say, Mr. Deputie, you have been going door to door, and you've been inviting volunteers to go door to door with you because, as we know, grassroots campaigns are very important. You were telling us off the air about some experience that you had and how you were confronted by these people, and we were talking about how these anti-fascist or the Antifa people are actually the fascists themselves. You have family, and you yourself came from a place where oppression really exists. You're now running for you're now running for Senate here in the state of Minnesota. Tell us about your platform, sir.
My platform, Stu, is very very common. Nowadays is I am an immigrant who immigrated to this country almost 30 years ago at the age of 8. Growing up within the system and looking at what America is outside of this world and how people tend to view America. But coming here, you hear a different narrative, okay? So if you fall into that trap of this narrative that America is this oppressive and racist nation, things can really go south for you. But fortunately for me, that I was surrounded by parents that showed me how to work hard, but they were also examples for me. So growing up, later on, my views began to shift and change. And growing up with a typical conservative worldview, but yet always identifying myself as a Democrat because of this narrative. All of that changed later on. So to condense it down, is that I am no longer a Democrat. I am a conservative.
There we go.
I am a husband, a father of 7 children. Work hard to get myself off, off of government aid. Worked hard, full time work, full time school, graduated school. I worked in the HVAC business for about 5 years, and then finally decided to start up my own, business. And then later on, seeing how drastically our society began to shift, this became a real concern to me. Because of
Well,
that,
something, Alexander. Let me jump in there for you. You had just answered the next question that we had prepared for you when you were talking
okay.
there, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's good. I was going to ask you, going through all these things that you went through when you came here and working hard and all that other stuff and seeing the narrative of the people around you, how did that change your views? And you answered it and you said, I am no longer a Democrat. And I went on to do all these other things. And I think that that's really great. And I really wish that narrative of that you have could be on a lot bigger and broader platform, because I think that you are, no offense, but you're the poster child of what happens to people that are willing to work hard, do the right thing, be an overall good person. And
Yeah.
There's no question.
How
that
oppressed are you really going to be if you work hard and you're a decent person?
You're going to be attacked for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a black guy.
Yep.
You were recently attacked as well. Tell us about that. How you were targeted and attacked. It's insane.
Okay, so the last couple events, and after you and I talked, we were at Hugo, and obviously this happened after our domestic terrorist John Thompson, decided to go on this rant. I went there to Hugo, and supposedly Black Lives Matters were coming there, but nobody came and nobody was on their side there. So really just went there to basically stand up because we were told to not show up. Okay, so the organizers of that event, canceled it. So because of fear of safety, and me and couple other candidates, talked about it, and they basically decided to just cower back and just say, we are not going to go to this event because of so and so reasons. But I was like, guys, come on, man. I mean, look at what's happening. Because of fear, because of threats, you guys are basically letting them win. So I decided not to cave in. I went, and nobody was there, right? And you know what? Everybody else that was there was totally blessed, because someone came and basically said enough is enough, and we are Americans, and we are strong, we are brave, and we are powerful. Let our voices be known. Let us, stand up and vote. Let us stand up and get these people out of office. Mm-hmm. So I basically did that. After that, we went to the Stillwater Trump boat rally, and once again, once again, there were Black Lives Matter people there wearing shirts, screaming at us, and just telling us that we are racist and this and this and that. So
Of course you are.
I was able to engage in a conversation with about three of them, and that one was civil, and we actually talked, and they actually had a breakthrough, and I was able to break through into two of them and say, look, I am a black man. I am not I am not oppressed. And by the way, these were three white women telling me this. By the way, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. But that conversation was very civil, very cool. And then recently on Saturday, we had a United We Stand rally at the state capitol.
Mm-hmm.
We marched from the cathedral all the way to the state capitol, and that's where we've also Joy Villa was with us because she came to an event we were hosting. So I decided to just invite her with me, and we were there, patriots walking, just rallying, and this time Antifa showed. Black Lives Matter showed up. Supposedly there were supposed to be a counter protest to our protest. We pulled permits, and they didn't. And something happened where there were supposed to be about 200 of them signing up to go, but only about 20 of them showed up. So before we got to the state capitol, they were walking among us, yelling at us, screaming at us, cursing at us, at us, pushing over children, pushing over, elderly people. And so I just continue to just encourage our guys, do not give them a reason for this. Just keep walking. Let us go to this rally. And fortunately for them and also us, we had probably about 60 to 70, law enforcement there. And they basically created a barricade between us and them. But
the cops didn't whoop your ass,
them,
huh?
Breakthrough.
That's crazy. Yeah. So you're telling me you're telling me that you were among 60 or 70 cops as a black man and you weren't shot.
Exactly right.
These racist cops are out of control. I mean, I don't believe that for a second. Some of this has to be a lie. I mean, these cops. There's just you're a black immigrant from Liberia, Africa. Certainly, you were targeted by the police.
No, man. I mean, that is a crazy narrative. The numbers does not show it, and the stats does not show it. So that is not a narrative that I even listen to at all. So
you know what? I wish that you are the perfect person to have these conversations. You were talking about the three ladies in Stillwater you had a conversation with, and even if you were not running for an elected office, you're still the perfect guy to have these conversations because African American immigrants that have the story that you have are exactly what all these assholes are saying is the problem. You're the person that's targeted. People like you are the ones that are targeted and that are oppressed. and
Yep.
we're brought over on a boat in chains and all this other stuff. And
Yep.
you are the perfect man to stand in front of them, whether you're a candidate or not, but just as an African-American man to say, this is bullshit. I'm not oppressed.
Yep.
You are a perfect example of what hard work, determination, and like I said before, just being a genuine good person can get you in this country. This is the land of opportunity. And if you're willing to work for it and get off your ass and do something, you're going to do great. Be just fine.
That's racist.
Thank you.
And guys, listen though. Listen also. So this rally was full of immigrants like me there also. It was crazy because there were Asians there. There were another father from Nigeria and his son, who is part of, Brexit. I mean, dude, our side had a vast, diverse group of people, and it was amazing. And this represented America. And the contrast was really there. I mean, I was like, so you guys are calling us racist. I mean, turn around, you see Asians there. You saw, blacks there, Africans there. You're like, it just didn't make sense. And they were so angry. And we were like literally praying, for them. We were there even singing worship songs while one of them decided to break through the barricade, but fortunately she got tackled and arrested, and then put in timeout. But it was just one of those things you're like, this does not make sense. It's ironic. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So
you're doing a lot of good things out there, and the attention that you're getting is positive because you're delivering a positive message. On the other side, there is the House candidate, the Minnesota House candidate, in a district that would be inside of your district. His name is John Thompson. You briefly alluded to him earlier. For the listeners on iHeartRadio that are not familiar with who John Thompson is, he recently made news. National news actually got coverage for being an asshole. He was up at Bob Kroll's house, who is the president of the Minneapolis Police Federation, blah, blah. They were protesting out there, and the protest quickly turned into a terrorist attack when Mr. Thompson grabbed the microphone and threatened to burn down the city of Hugo. There was recently and then using racist slurs and calling people racists, and there were young people there. There were minor children there that he was threatening that were very scared. It was an unbelievable display for a grown man to act like that. Number one, he just shows that he has absolutely no integrity whatsoever. He's a complete piece of shit, in my opinion. And I'm allowed to have that opinion. You know why? Because this is my radio show. So anyway, totally, yeah. So the thing that I wanted to ask you about is, do you think so there was recently a fundraising event, I think, from the DFL that was then put on hold because the Minnesota Police Association said, we're an association that oftentimes backs political candidates, and
they do. Yep.
And your party will not be taken seriously by the police association anymore if you allow somebody like this radical to participate in an event like this. We'll completely remove ourselves from any of that consideration in the future. Do you think these people are shooting themselves in the feet and derailing enough on their own to the point where they're just going to become irrelevant? It seems to me that they're in the fight for their life.
Yep.
They're desperate.
Yeah, so the peace office, President Brian Peters contacted me and basically endorsed me, later on. And him and I talked, and usually they will endorse, Democratic, candidate. But after John Thompson doing that, Brian sent me the email, and I posted it on my Facebook account, and I was literally just letting that get out there. And fortunately for us, Democrats saw it, and they were able to recant that fundraising. But the fact that they have not gotten him out of the race should say something about them.
Yeah,
it should be able to reveal who they really are, and hopefully people will continue to see it that way. I know for me, I am constantly harping on that to help expose this party, that it's no longer the parties of the hard-working liberal Democrats, which my district is full of.
right.
So for me personally, that's why I am making it a point to invite over these people, because Wednesday nights I have an event where anybody can come and talk to me. It is at a coffee house on Wednesday nights, and I promote that on Facebook.
Where's the
I just let my candidate.
Where is this
Wednesday's
meeting at?
This Wednesday meeting is at Sojourners Cafe on White Bear Avenue, 1406 White Bear Avenue, and that is across the street of White Bear Avenue and Sherwood.
And what time is that?
From 6 to 10 p.m. So
6 p.m. to 10
pretty
p.m.
much me
this
just there.
Wednesday. You can meet with Alexander Buster Deputie. He is a District 67 candidate for Minnesota State Senate. He loves the people. He loves the businesses and the homes in the community. You can find him at alexanderbusterdeputie.com. If you believe in what he's saying, if you want to be a part of his movement, there's absolutely all kinds of opportunity to get involved. You have a lot invested personally in that part of St. Paul. You said you were tired of nobody properly representing your neighborhood, and so you did the most patriotic thing that you could by putting yourself into the race. I commend you for that. Keep fighting the good fight. Stand up to these people, and don't let them push you around. That's exactly what they want. That's their agenda. Alexander Buster Deputie, thank you so much for coming on the program, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Richard. Okay.
I really like that guy. He's really something. He's a testament to the American dream. This guy he's a foreign national. He's an immigrant. He became naturalized as a citizen here. He's a citizen. He's running for office at some of the highest levels of government in the state of Minnesota. Richard, if that's not the American dream, I don't know what is. So when black people tell me that they're oppressed and that they don't have a fair shake, it's people like Alexander Buster Deputie that prove that theory wrong and shoot holes in that theory all day long.
Well, I've always said this, we can go, and Stu, you and I do it all the time, round and round in the truck when we're working or sitting at the bar having a beer and a burger, about all these things that should be happening and how pissed off we are about what's going on in our communities and in our government processes and departments or whatever. And my stance always has been, if you're that pissed off and you're that hurt by it, and you're oppressed like others have said, then stop running your mouth. Stop running your mouth and go run for office and really make change and be the change that you want to see in your community.
Yeah, get involved.
And this dude is doing it.
Yeah.
And he's not just going to rallies and being heard and having a little talking group at the coffee house down the street from the best bar on the east side. But he's running for office, and he's really going to try to invoke change in his community. And so I wish him all the best of luck, and I hope he goes a lot farther than just the state level.
Yeah, me too. You can join him again this Wednesday, 1406 White Bear at what is that place called, Richard? Sojourners Coffee Shop?
Sojourners or something like that.
Sojourners. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what you need to know is it's 1406 White Bear. They don't pay us to talk about them anyways. Neither does, by the way, Alexander Buster Deputie, but we love having him on. And the invitation is always open for the other side of the aisle, because they talk about this this equal fair share time and all that nonsense, whatever. The invitation's always open for anybody that wants to come on here and talk or tell me what a racist I am or disagree with me or tell me that I'm so wrong and that Alexander Buster Deputie should not be in office. You're more than welcome to come on over. In the second half, Phill Kline, former attorney general who was pushed out, doxxed, his license was taken from him, and he is now exposing Act Blue as part of a $6 billion movement for progressive candidates. You could be donating to these people and not even know it. Find out coming up next. More PC Radio straight ahead.
We will force votes.
We will not stop.
Any Republican senator is part of the cover-up.
What the f***? Impeachment. Impeachment. This is madness.
The PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich. Back in a minute.
12 hours, 54 minutes, and 47 seconds. That timer is counting down right now at usconcealedcarry.com. If you go to uscca.com/mojo50, you're going to find the new sponsor of Mojo 50. 2 extra bonuses when you activate your U.S. Concealed Carry Association membership today. One of them is a free entry, chance to win September's $22,790 Las Vegas getaway, Richard. Also, a free entry for the chance to win this gun. The Kimber Micro Raptor Stainless. It's an $842 value. Only 12 hours remaining. Get over there. uscca.com/mojo50. The only place that you'll find that promotion. uscca.com for usconcealedcarry.com/mojo50.
Patriotically correct radio.
Hey, it's Stu Peters and Richard Leonard on behalf of Johnson Jewelers. And you know what? We love talking about Johnson Jewelers, Richard. It's so easy to talk about them. Did you know that they buy gold? They buy gold. They buy diamonds. You can contact them by just going to johnsonjewelers.com. They are located in Woodbury, Minnesota. So if you want to go there and look at the stuff that I'm looking at here on the website, custom design services, they have cases full of custom jewelry. And it's my understanding that all of that stuff that's in there is custom made. So that tells me that if I have a necklace or if I have a pendant or if I have a ring that is a little bit out of date or I want it changed or if I want to do something special with Grandpa's birthstone or the pendant that Grandma left behind, I can do that and it can be turned into a custom piece of jewelry that I can keep close to me. All I have to do is go to johnsonjewelers.com, exchange a few emails, give them a call at 651-735-4400 or just visit them online at johnsonjewelers.com. An official sponsor of PC Radio, Johnson Jewelers, johnsonjewelers.com, johnsonjewelers.com. That's johnsonjewelers.com.
Broadcasting live from the highest cloud of privileged patriotism. The PC Radio Show is on Mojo 50 Radio.
Welcome back. Well, there we go again. I'm not going to touch it. See, I start touching things and things go bad. See, when most people have a job where if they push the wrong button, that can slide by. We have jobs where if we push the wrong button, almost 1 million people hear it. Speaking of almost 1 million people, welcome to all of our iHeartRadio listeners, Mojo 50 Radio, OpsLens app listeners, and anywhere in the social media hemisphere where low-budget afternoon radio programming can be heard, because we are proud of that. We teased it a little bit over the weekend, and I've been talking to you a little bit off the record, Richard, some absolute corruption being exposed here, and it doesn't surprise me where it's coming from. But we had talked about Act Blue briefly on our program a couple of weeks ago, and I said that we were going to start peeling the orange peel back here and trying to get to the bottom of this. We know that they're a powerhouse presence, and we know that Act Blue is the number one place where Act Blue has put their money so far this year. And you can don't believe me, don't take my word for it, research it yourself. A Google search of Act Blue. They are they're a donating. So there's another one on the right side of the aisle, and we're going to talk to former Attorney General Phill Kline about that. But the powerhouse presence of Act Blue and all of its corruption, because of over $6 billion given to progressive candidates, has actually been able to negotiate a special relationship with banks so it doesn't have to reveal donor names when it's processing its gift cards. And so on the phone with us right now to talk about this and break this right here on PC Radio, former state of Kansas Attorney General Phill Kline. Welcome to the program, sir. Thank you for your time.
It's great to be with you, Stu.
We've talked a little bit off the record. You've got some things that you want to talk about. Tell us about Act Blue. There's a lot of people out here that don't even know that this organization exists. For the layperson who doesn't know about Act Blue, break this down for us.
Well, it's a Goliath in Democratic fundraising. It's been around since 2004, when the left really started to organize in response to Bush v. Gore. That's when left money started flowing in to elect secretaries of state, flowing in to elect local district attorneys, and also organizing this Act Blue and technology to reach out and to fund leftist causes. Act Blue in the last year alone has moved close to $900 million to the left, and much of that money is done in such a fashion that it leaves open the door for third parties to easily take large donations and render them untraceable so that they could evade federal election laws and federal campaign finance laws. So that's our concern that drove us into pulling literally millions of records of Act Blue and reviewing those. And as we released last week, those records show that of the 900 some odd million, about 350 million allegedly came from unemployed persons, and 48% of their donor base are persons who are unemployed. And I think that raises serious questions that need to be answered.
In your investigation into this Act Blue activity, do you find reason to believe that this is an organic creation by the progressive Democrats just here in the United States? Or has anything that you've discovered leading you to believe that this activity that they're doing was created abroad possibly and transplanted here to be carried out? I'll name the name George Soros, for example.
Well, I will say this, that America certainly is of interest to people around the globe, not just Russia, but also China, the North Koreans, Iran, and so forth, and all of those who would change the nature and form of our government like to play here. And Soros money has flowed in, as I mentioned at the top of our interview. Soros money started to flow into Secretary of State's races as he formed the Secretary of State's project. That's the chief election officer in the state, and it's in the Constitution, it is state government and particularly legislatures that control the time, place, and manner of elections. So he's putting that money directly into the pockets of those who run our election operations. And he's also doing it into the pockets of those who would enforce some of those local state laws. So I would not say that it was created elsewhere. It was created here, but it has broad support from many around the globe.
Well, it just seems like such a violation of the American people's trust. And how in God's name does somebody on unemployment, whether they know it or not, donate all these kinds of monies to a campaign that they may not even support? Stu had said earlier that we may be contributing to this whole scam and not even know it. How is that possible?
Well, there's a couple of things, and I want to point out that Act Blue responded and said, look, a lot of these people are homemakers or they're retired. And I don't believe it shows or explains the disparity, because we ran the same analysis on the Republican platform, which is called Win Red. And only 4% of their donors are unemployed. We compared Biden for president and Trump for president. Biden for president has close to 50% unemployed, and Trump for president, it's 2.6%. So I just want to mention that. Now, in following up, here's additional concerns that we are seeing. As an example, I am looking at a donor. I've analyzed a donor who Act Blue claims has given over 10,000 donations in the last year alone. That's like 30 a day, each and every day. And that's not the typical activity of a donor. So we my background is investigation and prosecution, and I like to know, and I don't like to speculate. But I can tell you this raises serious concerns that need to be looked into. And I'm hopeful that those with the responsibility in government will start asking these questions to Act Blue directly, so that they give answers that explain what are serious anomalies that we're finding in their reports.
Has anybody met you with resistance on this? Has anybody threatened you, or has anybody coerced you to stand down in this investigation?
No.
Okay. People can find information at got-freedom.org. That's where I first learned of you, and my eyeballs almost popped out of my head when I read that $6 billion has been donated to progressives. And then as you continue to unfold in your information on the website, you start talking about how Act Blue has been able to negotiate special relationships with banks. Has WinRed been able to do the same thing? Is the playing field equal?
No, it's not. And that's of concern. And actually, policymakers can put an end to that. You know, the nature of that relationship where there's not a necessary verification. If you go purchase anything on the internet, you're going to hit this verified, which it essentially requires a specialized password to make sure that the person identified as making the purchase is the person making the purchase. Mm-hmm. Well, sidestep that, and they shouldn't be able to. And policymakers should put an end to that and say no more, because one thing that everybody has cried about and asked for as it relates to political campaign contributions is transparency. And here we're losing transparency. And that is a deep concern. So it's something that we continue and will continue to raise and place before people as an issue.
So, Mr. Kline, one thing I'm kind of curious about is, what was the tipping point for you? What was it that made you decide to really dig into this and get it out into the public? Because I imagine that there's going to be a lot of people, when they read and actually learn about what's going on, there's going to be an outrage about these types of activities. What was it for you that was the point where you said, all right, this is BS and it needs to be heard or learned about?
Well, it's quite fascinating. It's a combination of things, and I would say that we are seeing an unprecedented merger of billionaires, large amounts of money, and contracts with people in power in government, and the flow of funds between them that is corrupting our process. As just a couple of other examples, Mr. Zuckerberg's recent donation of $300 million to charities. And those monies are flowing from charities directly to jurisdictions, blue jurisdictions, to turn out the vote, where government is involved in turning out the vote in areas that gave Hillary Clinton over 80% of the vote. So in other words, you've got government ceding the management of elections to private monies to turn out a certain demographic to influence an election. That's wrong. That's not proper. Meanwhile, government executives, governors who have declared themselves not to be a part of the lawmaking process, but to be above the lawmaking process, to actually be the law, are suspending state laws, reducing voting locations in person in rural jurisdictions, while accepting and encouraging these funds into blue jurisdictions to turn out the vote. And we see other contracts. Act Blue is not alone. You've got NGP Van that contracted with Michigan, with a Democrat governor, to trace COVID so that they would get personal information and data on healthcare affiliations and so forth to a Democratic fundraising operative. This is wrong.
That's absolutely insane. And I learned yesterday about, kids that are going to be 18 years old during an election cycle. So they start going after these kids when they went from civics to social studies, right? I don't know if you remember that switch or that flop or not.
Yeah.
But these indoctrinating school teachers. What they do is they figure out the graduating class. So, for example, by November of this year, it would have to have been last year's seniors that are going to be now eligible to vote. So 4 years ago, don't get it twisted, these teachers as ninth graders knew that. So they start filling out forms, giving information, and at 17 years old, before they're even a legal adult, they are registering, they are giving up their name, their phone number, their email addresses, their social media accounts, so that these people can start infiltrating them. By the way, they've been corrupted, they have been indoctrinated from the time that they were about 15 years old. Mr. Kline, I'd like to give you the opportunity to set the record straight. The Kansas Supreme Court found, quote, clear and convincing evidence, end quote, that you committed numerous violations of conduct rules, which included providing false testimony. You took that through federal appeals and lost. The Supreme Court passed on your case. You told me privately that this was all due to what you think was political retaliation. You were really hard charging as an attorney general, going after people like Planned Parenthood. Why is the court wrong, and who's responsible for you losing your license? Because your information is very important to me. I believe you as a person, but obviously we're going to be met with credibility issues if anybody were to go Google you, which I can see these Google numbers just flying off the charts right now as a result of your appearance here on the show. Please clear that up, because I think it's important for you to have that opportunity here.
Sure, that's exactly what they want you to question. And let me say that I conducted my investigation of Planned Parenthood ethically, honestly, and perfectly consistent with the law. What I obtained is evidence that 3 judges, independent judges, reviewed and found probable cause on 4 occasions. They did this review to find Planned Parenthood committed several crimes, including 27 felonies. That evidence never reached court, even though it should have. And let me explain why. And Planned Parenthood failed to report child rape, and they were conducting illegal late-term abortions. Here's why it never reached court. In Kansas, the Supreme Court is picked by the governor for life without need of confirmation. And Sebelius, my governor at the time, Kathleen Sebelius, former HHS secretary under Obama, and also good friends with Cecile Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. She appointed 5 of the justices. This Supreme Court filed the complaint against me. It was the Supreme Court that appointed the investigator. It was the Supreme Court that appointed the panel that heard my appeal. And it was the Supreme Court that heard the decision on my appeal. That's flat out wrong. And let me give you an example of the type of claims against me. One was, it was unethical for me to investigate abortion clinics because I'm pro-life. Well, I mentioned to the court that I'm also against rape, and I investigated rapists.
Right.
I'm also against murder, and I investigated murderers. And really, the same conflict, purported conflict, would occur when a pro-choice attorney general ignores clear evidence that judges found probable cause to believe that Planned Parenthood committed crimes and refused to investigate it. That is just a formula to take people who disagree with that court's posture and prohibit them from holding public office. And here's another complaint that was against me. My investigators, in interviewing potential witnesses who had direct ties to the target of the investigation, refused to tell those targets what the investigation was about. And I was charged with an ethics violation. They called it a lie when it was really a refusal. But secondly, I know your listeners have watched Law and Order. What undercover officer goes out in the street and when he gets asked the question, what are you investigating, tells to the potential drug dealer, I'm investigating you for selling drugs?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's nuts. That's nuts. Yep. That's the type of claims that came against me. And let me tell you, I did the right thing. I would do it again.
You point out on got-freedom.org that only 16% of American adults are retired. And therefore, even if people without a job gave political contributions as often as those with jobs, this would only include 20% of all donors. Even in 2018, people above the age of 65 were the only age group that voted Republican. So if anything, fewer than 20% of donors are not employed would be expected to give Democrats, while the percent giving to Republicans might be a bit higher. Are these people going to be investigated criminally? Do you see that Act Blue is I know that you don't like to speculate because you like to know. There's clear and convincing evidence to me that there's corruption here going on, which is why a lot of candidates actually jumped out of bed with Act Blue. Is that correct?
Well, let me mention just a couple of things very briefly, and then I'm sorry, Stu. I've got to go, and I hope to be on again, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Of course.
First of all, the threshold of an investigation legally is called reasonable suspicion. If you have reasonable suspicion to believe that crimes have been committed or that documents contain evidence of crimes, you can launch an investigation virtually anywhere in this nation. So that is the threshold. Now, again, as you mentioned, I don't speculate. I put out the information, and there are those who have responsibility to take that information and to make sure that the laws are being followed. I'll tell you what I will do. We're going to continue our investigation. We will continue to release what we find when we are confident that what we find really reflects issues of concern. And I'd be glad to share that with you in the future. But I'm sorry, I've got to go right now. Thank you for the time, and thank you for the opportunity to be on your show.
Mr. Phill Kline, former Kansas State Attorney General. Find more information at got-freedom.org. That's got-freedom.org. Richard, the information that Mr. Kline was bringing here, I mean, that's only the tip of the iceberg. We have talked candidly. He refused to name names for me as well, holding true to his claim that he doesn't like to speculate and that he will only release information as he is 100% confident that it exists.
Right.
In looking more at got-freedom.org over here, similar disparities exist between funding sources for the Democrat National Committee and the Republican National Committee. The DNC reports 40.6 of its donors are unemployed, and the RNC only 6.4. Biden for President Committee reporting 51% of its donors are unemployed, compared to just 2.7 of the Trump donors. If they can't cheat him, Richard, if they can't beat him, they're going to cheat him.
Yeah. I think that, there's a couple layers there that bother me. I mean, all right. So some of the donation dollars are unemployment dollars. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think the bigger problem is the way that all this money is being hidden to avoid and evade these campaign funding laws and all that other stuff. And I can tell you that when I worked for a congressional member, I didn't work in the campaign office. I worked in the congressional office doing casework. But it was very clear to us when we're talking to constituents that if there's one word at all about campaign funds or donations, stop talking and you direct them to another person, because the rules were so very strict about dividing up the responsibility of a campaign and an actual office that is doing congressional work. And so I can only imagine that if it's that strict with a member already sitting, and it's that strict when even if you're donating $5, there was very specific guidelines that had to be followed.
Yeah.
And now there's millions, maybe even billions of dollars that are just mysteriously appearing. That's a huge problem.
Well, as legality questions plague the leftist fundraising giant, Act Blue, also some other things are going on. I have received inside information that the Minnesota National Guard's MP company has been activated. And I cannot tell you my source, Richard. I know that you're in the National Guard. I can sit here and say that you are not my source. This may be even news to you that they were activated.
I didn't know that.
They have, and they're not being activated because of rioting in Minneapolis. They're not being activated because of rioting anywhere. They have been activated, and their deployment orders are for Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. They're going to Gitmo. And so what I did is I did a little bit of research here, and in the research that I found, I don't know if you were aware, but very quietly in the last just 2 weeks, the tribunal, the military tribunal in Cuba and Guantanamo Bay went from a 7-member tribunal to a 12-member tribunal. Are you familiar with what 12-member tribunals are required for?
No, that's a MP function and the JAG function. I'm a ground pounder, bro. We shoot.
12-member tribunals are required when handing down a death penalty for high crimes like treason. Prediction. oh God, please let me be right on this. Prediction. Hillary Clinton to be arrested by U.S. Marshals and held at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba within the next 3 weeks.
Hey, yo. It's about time that bitch answers for the crimes that she's committed.
That's just a prediction. I have no idea.
I hope that you're right.
I do too. And listen, right along with her, people like Clapper, Comey.
Clapper?
Yeah, Robert Mueller. So 24 phones were wiped clean. Accidentally. 24 phones of people that were in the Mueller investigation when they were investigating Donald Trump, their phones have been accidentally wiped clean, all of them using the same excuse, which, by the way, is, I entered the wrong password too many times.
Okay.
Or they ran out of hammers and bleach. So
yeah,
these phones are being wiped clean. This military tribunal is okay. So they're sending more MPs is what I'm reading here now. Somebody just sent me a message that the MP company's been there for about a month, but this wasn't made public where they were going. Of course, I mean a lot of deployments are not made public. But Gitmo is a strange place
for a good reason.
For somebody to be going right now. And for them to be there for a month and then for more to be sent there and for this tribunal switch to have been made in the last couple of weeks, all of these things being put together are quite interesting. Some more information being leaked, by the way, and I got to look at this here. There is a court document from the state of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District, in a notice of motion and motion for disclosure, the state of Minnesota versus J. Alexander Kung. This is the owner of the store where George Floyd was killed, allegedly killed by officers on the streets of Minneapolis. We all know that that's not true. I'm gonna put this up on the screen here. It's hard for me to do that, but there's a highlighted section of a court document here, and I'm just getting this, so forgive me not putting this on the screen. But as part of this motion, it says any and all files pertaining to Mr. George Floyd's cooperation as an informant (parentheses snitch) for the Minneapolis Police, FBI, or any other state or federal enforcement agency. Either before or after May 6, 2019. They're asking for those records in a court case and in a motion for disclosure in Hennepin County District Courts. This is a leaked document. I cannot verify the validity of this. We'll be working on it, just as we said that we were going to work on the legality questions plaguing the leftist fundraising giant Act Blue. We do know that... So it's possible that George Floyd was a snitch. And obviously the reason that they don't want to leak that would be the same reason that they didn't want to leak body cam footage that showed George Floyd getting out of the vehicle, saying that he was going to die and that he couldn't breathe prior to any officer laying a hand on him. And the reason why he was saying he couldn't breathe, we can speculate with pretty decent educated assumptions here, is because he was high on fentanyl, and the leaked medical examiner's report said that he had a lethal amount of fentanyl in his system. The number one side effect for the fentanyl cocktail that is oftentimes used by medical doctors is to control pain. The number one negative or undesired side effect of fentanyl is your inability to respirate. The reason that they wouldn't want this court document leaked is for the same reason that they wouldn't want the medical examiner's report leaked, which is for the same reason that they wouldn't want the body camera footage leaked. The very people that knew what was on it were the ones that withheld it. Attorney General Keith Ellison, Hennepin County District Attorney Michael Freeman, Chief of Police Medaria Arredondo. There's corruption going on. There are lies being told. There is information being hidden while our streets are torn apart. And with the very same people who are memorializing a dead criminal thug, a career criminal home invader, would they be memorializing him in the same way if those very people knew that George Floyd was a snitch? Probably not. And that is probably why they wouldn't want to leak that information. Again, I cannot verify the validity of that court document. However, you and I have worked in the courts for many, many years. I've seen a lot of documents like that. If this is a forgery, somebody did a hell of a good job. And I guess I can see the motive. I can see the intent for doing something like that. However, they'd be doing a hell of a good job, Richard.
Well, you know how they always say time heals all wounds? Well, clearly in this case, time is just helping the plot to thicken. And I agree with you. There's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of unanswered information, whether it's true or not true. All the stuff that comes out, whether it's leaked or released, somebody's got to answer for all this shit. And man, it's going to get interesting. I just hope that in the interim of all this stuff that the city doesn't burn again and people aren't hurt and business is lost. But man, I guess nobody likes a good unveiling of corruption and watching heads roll like you and I do. But
there was a motion to dismiss the charges against the officers that quietly went before the court as well, without anybody really paying attention to that. And there were demonstrations that were pre-planned, quote unquote, protests that were going to take place. Those protests obviously turned into violent riots, and we're rioting all over the country, even in the wake of false information. It doesn't even have to be factual. So speaking of facts here, I just want to remind you of my buddy.
Let's talk facts. First step at lowest unemployment. Never if you black, check a 401k. Look at all them racks. And we got a stock market turned to the max. And we got wage growth, but we did that. Plus everybody working to hit lowering the tax. Most people working never. Can you feel the impact? No, I can't be a Democrat.
Richard, those were his final words. I love that guy. Your final words for today, please.
Everybody wake up, do some research, figure out what's really going on in your community, and vote informed. Be informed when you vote.
Yeah, I'm not even going to tell you who to vote for or what side, but at least go do the duty of gathering the information. Don't believe your mom and dad. Don't believe daddy government. Don't believe mommy media. Don't even believe me, for crying out loud. Until tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Here's what's up to it. Here's what's down to it. Here's to any way you can get to it. Here's to those that don't do it. May they be dragged to it, tied to it, or forced to it. And here's to us who do it, because we're the ones that's used to it. Remember to fly low and avoid that radar. One day they're going to come for the car, and when they do, save the radio!
Censored by Twitter, shadow banned on Facebook, and hated by fake news media. The Patriotically Correct Radio Show with Stu and Rich, Mojo 50 Radio.